fractions, decimals, and percents. So as we look at converting fractions to decimals, we'll look at that first. We need to keep in mind what the place value system is for decimals. So the first spot is the tenths place, then the hundredths, then the thousandths, then the 10,000ths. So if I can rewrite any of these fractions so that the denominator is one of these values, then easy, job done. So let's try. So the first fraction I've got is 3/10. So that's already one of the place values. It's the first place value. So I can just rewrite that as 0.3. Then I've got 7/100ths, and that's the second place value. So that means I need 2 places after the decimal. And in order for it to be 7 and not 7D, I'm going to have to put 0.7. And then the last fraction here, 43/1000ths, since it's the thousandths place, I need 3 places after the decimal. 1, 2, 3. And in order for it to be 43, I'm going to have to put the 43 here and fill in with a 0. So pretty easy if the bottom number is 10, 100, 1,000, or 10,000. It's also pretty easy if I can rewrite the fraction so that the denominator is one of these values. So, for example, 4/5. I can rewrite 4/5 so that it has a denominator of 10, right? I just have to multiply by 2 on the top and bottom. So now I've got 8/10, which then I can write as 0.8 because it's got an 8 in the tenths place. Let's look at that for the next fraction. 9/20. Well, 20 goes into 100. 20 times 5 will get me to 100, so times 5 on top is 45. So now I've got 45/100ths, right? I need 2 place values because that's hundredths, and I'll fill that in with a 4 and a 5. The next one is 1/4. Same thing, I can't go into 10, but I can go into 100. Because 4 times 25 is 100, so I multiply by 25 on the top, and I get 25/100ths. Then hundredths means I need 2 decimal places after the point, so then I'll fill in with a 2 and a 5. And then the last fraction we have here has a 25 on the bottom, and 25 goes into 100. 25 times 4, so I can do 8 times 4 and get 32. And then I have 32/100ths. So it's really easy. If the bottom number, if the denominator is 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, or if I can rewrite it so that the bottom number is one of those values. But what about when it's not? So a fraction like 1/3. 3 doesn't go in to 10 or 100 or 1,000. I mean, it goes in, but it's got a remainder, right? So we have to take a different approach when the denominator doesn't go in to 10 or 100 or 1,000. And that approach is to divide. The fraction bar that you see means the same thing as division. So 1/3 means 1 divided by 3. Now this is going to look kind of strange, but that means that the 3 actually goes on the outside. And so you might be thinking, and I can't do 3 into 1, right? 3 is too big. That's where decimals come in, right? So I put a point after the 1, and I also bring that point up on top of the line. So 3 goes into 10 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9, so I'm doing some long division here. 10 minus 9 is 1, right? I add a 0 and I can keep going with my long division, but it's 3 into 10 again. And it's going to keep being 3 into 10 because now I'm going to put a 9, and then I'm going to get a 1, and then it's going to become a 10, right? So this is going to be a repeating decimal. So the repeating decimal here is 0.33333333, right? So we can write that as 0.3 with a bar over the 3. All right, let's do the same thing for 5/6. So 5 divided by 6. Again, 6 doesn't go into 5, right? It's too big. So I add a point and a 0, and I bring the point up. 6 into 50, though, I can do that. 6 times 7 is 42. 6 times 8 is 48. So I think that's the closest I'm going to get. 50 minus 48 is 2. So I'm going to keep my division problem going. 6 into 20 goes 3 times. 6 times 3 is 18. I get a 2 again. 6 into 20 is 3. 6 times 3 is 18, right? See a pattern? So this is going to keep repeating. Not the 8, though, only the 3. So the way I would write this repeating decimal would be 0.83 with just a bar over the 3. And then the last one we have here is 3/8. So let me pause for a minute, because 8 doesn't go into 10 evenly, meaning without a remainder. It doesn't go into 100 without a remainder, but it does go into 1,000. So we could rewrite this with a bottom number or a denominator of 1,000, but it's just as easy to do the division. So 3 divided by 8, again, 8's too big, right? So we have to add a point and a 0 and bring the point up. 8 goes into 30 3 times. 8 times 3 is 24. I subtract, add another 0 and bring it down. 8 into 60 goes 7 times. 8 times 7 is 56. Bring another 0 down. 8 into 40 is 5. And this time, I didn't get a repeating decimal. I got a terminating decimal. So my decimal for 3/8 would be 0.375. Right, so now that we've looked at how to convert fractions to decimals, and you see that you have two options, right? Either rewrite the denominator, rewrite the fraction with a denominator of 10, 100, or 1,000, or we can divide, top divide by bottom. So now let's talk about percents. So these are the fractions that we already looked at, right? We already looked at 3/10, and we saw that it was 0.3. So what does that mean as a percent? Here's the key with percents and decimals. Percent, when you see the word percent, it means the same thing as the word hundredths. Believe it or not, they are synonyms. So if I can rewrite the decimal with hundredths, then I have the percent done. So for this decimal, 0.3, I can add a 0 on the end to give me a number that goes to the hundredths place, and then this is equal to 30%. Here, my decimal already goes to the hundredths place. It's 7 hundredths, or 7%. I'm going to skip over this third one for now, and I'm going to go over to the right side of the page. We'll come back to that one, I promise. But over here on the right side, I can keep doing the same thing, right? I can make this have two place values, 0.80, right? 80 hundredths, which is 80%. 45 hundredths, 45%. 25 hundredths, 25%. 32 hundredths, 32%. Easy, right? Now here, I can't write the full number if I only use two places, right? So just like we had two methods for converting fraction to decimal, we have two methods for converting decimal to percent. The first one is percent means the same as hundredths. So write it as hundredths, and then that's your percent. The second method is to move the decimal point. Since percent, the word cent comes from 100. When we multiply by 100, we move the decimal point 2 places to the right. So if I were to take this decimal point where it is, and actually let me get a different color here. If I move this decimal point 1, 2 places to the right, then I get my percent, which is 4.3%. Now you can see that that works for these too, right? Look at 4/5. 0.80. If I take this decimal point and I move it 2 places to the right, I get 80%. If I take 0.45 and I move it 2 places to the right, I get 45%. So that's the second method that you can use to convert a decimal to a percent. Let's take a look at these last 3 decimals that we did the division for, and we got 2 repeating decimals and a terminating decimal. So for this first one, 1/3 was equal to 0.3 repeating. If I move my decimal 2 places to the right, well, I've got to fill in, right? I can't just put an empty space. And this 3 repeats in this number. So there would be a 3 here, and there would actually be a 3 here and a 3 here, right? It goes on and on. So my percent here would be 33. And if it depends on how you're rounding it, but you could either say 33% or 33.3% or 33.33%. It just depends on how many decimal places you want to round to. For this second number, 5/6, we got 0.8 and just the 3 repeated, right? So if I move this decimal point 2 places to the right, that gives me 83%, or if I need to keep going, 83.3, or you guessed it, 83.33, right? It just depends on how many decimal places I need to round to for the question that I'm working on. And then this last one, 3/8, I move the decimal 2 places to the right, and I get 37.5%.